And Amy and domestic terrorist and professional race hustler Bobby Rush announced this week that he's not running for re-election. So, may the next race hustler step up, right? I mean, well, who cares about the 1st District? Because we know what we're going to get. We'll get either a virulent race baiter like Bobby Rush or a more congenial dope like Danny Davis. What's the difference? What's the point? I can say that about most of the congressional seats in Chicago, in the state of Illinois, including in Chicago, of course. So I was intrigued when a friend of mine, who I have great respect for, said, you should meet this guy, Chris Butler, who's running as a Democrat, running in the Democrat primary for Bobby Rush's seat. He's a pastor, but he's a really thoughtful guy, and he's like the real deal, even though he's a Democrat in the city of Chicago, which usually those two things are mutually exclusive. So I said, sure, let's find out. And I don't know if he's friends with my friends. That's probably an indictment of him, and he'll never win that Democrat Socialist primary.
He'll forgive you if you're a pastor.
Maybe. Yeah, well, that's true. But only if I repent. Chris Butler, Democrat candidate for Congress in the 1st to replace Bobby Rush. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Danny, for having me on.
So I understand, you're a serious, thoughtful person who does a lot of substantive work in your community. So why do you want to run for Congress?
Dan.
Well, I think it's because of that very work. I think in our community, there are a lot of hardworking people whose voices and values have really been overlooked. The reason I got into this race is really because I'm not sure that the mean voter and the mean resident in the communities that I'm looking to represent are being represented by a lot of what we see coming out of our politics right now.
Well, develop that a little bit more. I mean, you've got I'm sure, many luminaries in public office like Pat Dowell, the alderman who was running for Secretary of State, dropped out now to run for this congressional seat. Why not just defer to one of the men and women of always? Because that's what we like in Chicago. Hasn't Bobby Rush over the last 3 decades served the 1st congressional district well? That's what I read from the AFL-CIO Times and from the Chicago Tribune, and what I understand from the network affiliate media. Bobby Rush is some sort of lion of the house, which is how the left describes every leftist who retires.
Listen, from the very beginning of this campaign, I've been saying that what we need in the 1st congressional district is not just another Democrat, but a new kind of Democrat. Some of the issues, even that you've been discussing when it comes to things like empowering parents to really be able to pursue a high quality education for their children. That's important. People want that. When it comes to things like, protecting the sanctity of life and especially the bond between parent and child and the ability to advocate for a child there. We just saw that stripped away in the state of Illinois. And the vast majority of people in our state and in this district didn't want to see that happen. But there's not enough voices who will stand up and advocate for those families, for those voices, and for those values.
Wait a second.
And we need that in our party.
Am I hearing that you're pro-life and pro-school choice?
I've been working on these issues for a long time, and I know that some of these things are going to be challenged by sort of the establishment of my party. But I've been campaigning since April. I've been working in these communities since I was literally 12 years old. And I really think you find these values in the community. And it's time for them to find voice and representation
and
in our politics.
You said you've been hitting the pavement, knocking on doors since April. What have you been hearing from hopefully constituents or from people in your community?
Listen, I'm here for people that folks want somebody in Congress who's going to focus on the issues that matter to families. do we access high quality education for our children? How do we make sure that we do have access to quality, affordable housing, quality, affordable health care? How do we make sure that we can have access to jobs that we can actually work and earn a solid living, and not be distracted on a lot of these other, sidebar issues that really run contrary for a lot of folks in the community. They run contrary to our values in the first place.
I know this is a local issue, and you're running for federal office, but you've worked on this issue locally. So what is your take on the Chicago Teachers Union's walkout and the mayor's response? What should be happening in the Chicago public school system?
So I know all too intimately how the opportunity for a quality education can change the trajectory of somebody's life. I always think about my dear friend who I grew up with from grammar school. We got to high school. I got to go to Whitney Young. This was back in the Options for Knowledge days. I got lotteried in. He got lotteried out. And over the course of our high school career, I just saw the way our lives took very different trajectories, and it was not because of some intrinsic quality that I had that he lacked. It was simply because we had different access to quality education. And I think there's a simple answer here. It is empower parents. Give them the tools, give them the monies in the form of some kind of tax credit, voucher, something. Find a way to empower parents, to give them the tools to advocate for their children. The problem is, they're advocates on the sort of teacher side in the union. There's institutional advocacy for the district, and parents don't have enough tools to advocate for their students. And I think it's time for us to just simply give parents those tools. We don't have to take anything away from anybody else. I think if you just empower parents, it'll change the dynamic.
Well, who are you for those of us who don't know you? And were you born and raised in Chicago? And who were your parents and all of that?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in the city of Chicago, and a working family like anybody else. My dad was a postal worker. My mom a clerical worker, and raising 5 children. Just worked hard every day to keep us focused on school and focused on church. I'm very grateful for that. And that's how I come up in this city in circumstances not too different from a lot of the young people who need advocacy right now in the city.
So in the first Congress, I mean, there's a mass exodus of people from Chicago, and that includes significantly black families, including from the first congressional district. 200,000 black families have left Chicago in the last decade. And it turns out, much to the shock of the political power structure, that black families want the same things as any other families, like you were talking about, with opportunities to get a quality education and jobs, and they want to be safe where they live. And that's not the case. So they're leaving to places where those things do exist, including safety. You've had now Mayor Lightfoot all of a sudden be interested in federal help to deal with the endemic violent crime in Chicago. And I wonder, as a local involved person and thinking prospectively as a federal lawmaker, what's your vision for what needs to be done to improve the peace on Chicago's streets?
So many times we force this into, like so many other issues, but we force it into a false binary. And we sort of make this assumption that if you want to invest in sort of long-term prevention, then you've got to be very much against the police, not want to invest in, the sort of high-quality police work that we actually need happening in our communities. And again, when I'm out talking to people, pastoring people, knocking on their doors in this campaign, folks want to be able to call the police in situations when they need the police. We've got to invest in high-quality police work still today, the number one deterrent of crime is a beat cop patrolling that community. It's not been different at any point. We've got to take that seriously. We've got to invest in those ways. Now, I have been involved. I started the Chicago Peace Campaign, I think, back in 2009, 2010. I do believe that we need to invest in faith-based and community-based peacemaking strategies, long-term intervention and prevention strategies, but those are not mutually exclusive from investing in high-quality police work.
Have you seen beat officers in your block? When was the last time that happened?
I mean, you see police officers, but the question is, do we see them enough? And I think the answer to that is clearly no, because we need to see them to the point that we see this crime go down.
So speaking as both a pastor and sort of intellectual leader in the community, and that profile would only increase if you were elected to Congress. What's your message to families, period, in Chicago and in the 1st District about the importance of family structure in a city and in a country where there is so much single parenthood, there are so many fractured families, mom or dad or both are absent? What is the message to those adults with children who aren't taking responsibility for their children?
Yeah, I mean, I think the message to the community is really the message that I learned from the community, which is that family is important, that family is the sort of initial institution and protection, if you will. I always say that the most important door that a child is going to walk through is not going to be the door of their schoolhouse or their doctor's office, but the front door of their home. And I learned that from the community. I fear, though, that too many times and in too many ways, public policy has failed people who want to establish strong families in the community because, it's not incentivized in the right ways. We're encouraging and making it easy to depend too heavily outside of the home and outside of that family structure. And I do think it's time to start advocating in Congress and in the public square for strong families as the sort of energy behind a revival in our community.
So I mean, what's the play here? Is there a real new generation of young people, and particularly young black men and women in the Democrat Party that seeks to bring the party away from Black Lives Matter Marxists and to a more sensible place on these bread and butter quality of life issues you've been discussing?
I think that there's an energy in the community to focus squarely on the issues that matter, which are those bread and butter issues. This is not to push aside the real passion in the community to uplift an appreciation for Black culture and Black history. But I think a lot of people, and not just young people, I think when I'm talking to even older folks who are out there campaigning, folks are ready not to put away Black culture, for sure, not to put aside Black history, but to begin to focus on Black futures. And that does mean figuring out how to bring safety into our communities, figuring out how to provide quality education, a more family-friendly and family-supportive work policy, and how we think about work policy. Start having a conversation about how do we build family and community wealth. And I know that there's an energy in the community to have these discussions and to see folks in leadership who have a lexicon for these things, because these are the things that are going to secure our future. And again, we don't have to give up our past. We don't have to give up our passion for equity and justice, our celebration of our culture to do this. These are not binary choices. That's a false choice. And I think folks need to see that these questions are not binary. You don't have to walk away from those important values. In fact, those values reinforce the sort of advocacy that I've been doing all my life, and especially on this campaign.
Well, I got to tell you, it sounds like my friend was right about you, and that's great. He is Chris Butler. The website to get more information on his candidacy, if you want to get involved, electchrisbutler.com, electchrisbutler.com. Chris, a pleasure talking to you. Good luck on the campaign, and if you don't win this race, maybe think about mayor in 2023.
Hey, thank you all so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope that folks will rally around this campaign to really make it happen, because I believe that it can.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Butler. And, oh, you know what, Dan? I forgot to ask him about the popcorn. If he was, congressman, what if somebody ate his popcorn?
They even had the unmitigated gall to go and make coffee for themselves and to pop popcorn, my popcorn, in my microwave.
Yeah, I know. The great unresolved crime in Chicago. What happened to Bobby Rush's popcorn? Well, so the good news is First District residents have a choice. They can elect another stooge, race hustling stooge like Bobby Rush, or they can go with Chris Butler and chart a completely different course. We'll see.
And to think that Mayor Lightfoot was more upset about that than the actual looting that was taking place. And by the way, Chris Butler joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The Lou Dobbs Financial Report is brought to you by Signature Bank, helping local businesses succeed. Visit signaturebank.bank for your commercial banking needs.
I'm Lou Dobbs, luring